Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com and the president of the Football Writers Association of America. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again. Thanks to Brian Driscoll over at Irish Breakdown, setting it up for us. If you want to subscribe, just go over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search CFB Nation, click subscribe, and you will be able to find all our podcasts. You can follow along live, comment during the show, things like that. So youtube.com, CFB Nation All-America Podcast is your destination for some quality college football talk. So, Bender, you are coming from us outside of Columbus, Ohio. I was at the College Football Hall of Fame yesterday here in Atlanta. Lots of ball talking going on. We've got SEC Media Days this week. We've got Big Ten and ACC Media Days next week.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's that time of year. SEC kickoff is a 4-day event. It wraps up today. A lot of quotables. I know we're going to talk about everything from Greg Sankey to Alabama and Arch Manning. We've got some I know you had a good column I read this morning about Alabama. We'll talk about that. Next week will be interesting. We're going to be live from ACC. I think both of us are going to be live from ACC, and I'm excited about it. I think the whole point of this SEC Media Day this week, it is probably the most fanfare around one of the four because they have
usually,
yeah. And I don't know. You tell me. I mean, what was the mood like in Atlanta? I mean, I've been there where it's just absolutely crowded. So many good people, so many good writers. I'm sure it was the same case.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there. But I'll jump back into that in a second. Let's do some Trocchi trivia. Of course, you mentioned Arch Manning. This is going to be an Manning-themed trivia question, okay? And we'll see how you do. Peyton Manning and Eli Manning went 5-1 in bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name the 5 teams they beat back in the day? Peyton at Tennessee, of course. Eli at Ole Miss, of course. Peyton went 3-1. Eli went 2-0. And I'd like to see if you can remember any of the 5. It was 5 different schools. There's a Big Ten flavor to a couple of them. So just think about that. We'll revisit at the end of the show. So that
I know our NFL writer Vinny Iyer knows one of them. if that offers any hints.
No, I think you're right. I think you are right.
I know he knows very well. I believe he was at that game, but we'll get to that later.
That's right. So, all right, but before we get to Arch, the star of the show, let's back up. You wrote a story Monday on Greg Sankey's opening comments, and it's been a topic of conversation at the College Football Hall of Fame. To answer your question, it was crowded. It wasn't as crowded as I've ever seen it. It was day 3 of 4. Texas had already gone. Georgia had already gone. Sankey had already gone. There were Alabama who was there, and Oklahoma was there. Today, I'm guessing it's even thinned out further. I would imagine it's Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. So none of Alabama was yesterday. So we'll the atmosphere was cool. It was chill. I saw it was described as chill. I talked to Pat Forty a little bit yesterday, who has been there the whole time, and he said that Arch got the expected, attention and scrum and that kind of thing. But I do think it's been bigger in the past. I don't know if it was a product of teams that I was there on those particular days. It's the air conditioning is still as cold as it ever was at College Football Hall of Fame. Holy mackerel.
I love it.
I think the SEC gives 3% of its TV revenue to the College Football Hall of Fame's electricity bill for keeping that place so cold in the middle of July. But anyway, so let's get back to Sankey. You wrote about it, the college football playoff. It was interesting. Everybody wanted to hear what Sankey was going to say on the record about what it's going to look like in 2026. And I think the theme that came out of it was the SEC and the Big Ten, as of today, are not on the same page.
No, and this battle is getting weird to me because I think Greg Sankey has pivoted a little bit toward this 5-11 model. There's no doubt. And, with a strength of schedule metric, and he was very, I don't know if diplomatic was the word, but he was throwing out there that, we were using all these blackjack analogies about double down and all that stuff. I don't like blackjack. It's too slow. So my point being, and that's where we're getting at here. This is getting slow because everybody thinks they have this great hand. I don't think the SEC has a better hand than the Big Ten right now. I think the Big Ten has more teams, more TV revenue, back-to-back national titles, has beat them in the semifinals. And the whole SEC means I've written a lot of SEC New Year's Day massacre columns to the Big Ten over the last 15 years. It's not that time anymore. That said, I think the Big Ten's automatic qualifier stands kind of dumb. I just don't get it. Like, if the SEC goes to 9 games and the Big Ten drops the automatic qualifier thing, once the SEC goes to 9 games, I think we're going to head toward this 5-11 thing, and we'll see when that is. I think that's the tip-off point, right? Unless you feel differently.
I just think it's ironic that, you're the one that convinced me that the SEC's 8-game conference schedule is harder than the Big Ten's 9. And so I didn't have a lot of sympathy for Sankey and everybody sticking at 8 till I saw the numbers, and their schedules are ridiculously hard. And then I saw this week, Indiana, did you see this? They dropped a home and home with Virginia to pick up like Western Kentucky and, some other FCS team or something. And it was just like, are you serious? Indiana is a Big Ten playoff team, right, and they are dropping Virginia. So, that's not a good look for the Big Ten when they're talking about strength of schedule and SEC has to step it up. Your formula, which I liked, and I didn't have any preconceived notions when I looked at it, convinced me that SEC's schedule was hard enough as is. And any big-time non-league game on top of that just exacerbated the fact that they have a tougher schedule, 1-12, than the Big Ten. So will Sankey move off that? It's hard to say. I do think something interesting that occurred to me is that the Big Ten 4 automatic qualifiers is not popular. And we're seeing it on the basketball side where the expansion of the NCAA tournament is not popular with people, right? It's almost universally nobody wants to expand that tournament. And then they tabled the discussion because I think there was so much public pressure. So I don't know if that'll factor into the fact that no one really likes the 4-4-2-2-1 thing other than the Big Ten ADs and things like that. That will be something they're going to have to fight a little bit. And, I used to not think public pressure meant anything, but the college basketball tournament expansion changed my mind a little bit on that. So it will be interesting to use the blackjack tournament. Will the Big Ten double down next week? So that's the drama next week, is to see if Petiti comes out firing and says, we like 4 automatic bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. These 2 conferences deserve it, but yada, yada, yada. So, and then we'll know we're further away from a solution, which means apparently, from what I'm reading from this week, 2026, we may be back at 12 again.
And I think that's where we're headed, because this is, like we said, we're going slow, where everybody's slow playing and not getting an agreement. Now, and Sankey was also very quick to kind of swat away Brett Yormark with, 70% of the TV is SEC and Big Ten. And, that's where they watched conference or games involving SEC or Big Ten schools. That's where 70% of the viewership was. That was his way of saying, we kind of control the room and you don't. But other than that, it was typical SEC messaging. We have a super conference, everything's great. And the conference is in good shape. I think the Texas and Oklahoma ads have been good. They should probably figure out Texas's fight song when Steve Sarkisian's walking up to the podium and not play Texas A&M's. But
he publicly apologized for that yesterday at the beginning of day 3. He said, we look at turnovers after real football games. We had a turnover here. We're gonna apologize for that. So that was on us.
Yeah, he has a good sense of humor and he is forward thinking. He always has been. But as far as a response, I don't think Tony Petiti's gonna come out firing. He's pretty buttoned up, TV executive type. That I don't think he's gonna engage in a war of words with.
He's not going to engage in a war of words, but he's going to double down on the fact that this is what we want, I think.
And I think more likely to make a splash would be Jim Phillips next week for the ACC, the other conference in there that, they're in like that third wheel position, but it's fair to say, they've won national titles in the 4-team era. They have a team that's going to be ranked in the top 5 that everybody loves this year. They have Florida State, so they have a say, and they have some stability now that lawsuit has been dropped. So I think he's the one more likely to come out swinging a little bit next week than Tony, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, you gave Brett Yormark credit for keeping the Big 12 together and all the, chaos that they had to endure. And I think you got to tip your cap to Jim Phillips, too, at this point. Going out and getting those schools. It was very weird geographically, of course, Stanford, Cal, SMU, but they were protected. If Miami left, if Florida State left somehow, if Clemson left somehow, they still had the right amount of teams. That probably gave them leverage to get to the settlement that they eventually got to, and how the money was going to be distributed and things like that. So they had some rough waters to navigate, and I think he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, for sure. And then, that's what we'll see next week. But so let's talk about Arch. Can we talk about Arch?
Talk about Arch.
Who cares about playoff expansion and all that? We have Arch Manning now in college football. I was texting back and forth with Trey Wallace, who was in that scrum with him, and Trey wrote a take like we wrote a take, and when you're shaking Paul Feinbaum's hand and it goes viral, he is the way I phrased it, Bill, I don't think he has to be the best player in college football, but he is without a doubt the biggest celebrity in college football. And he just seems like another Manning, like the timing of his quotes, the way he talks. He said, they went to Africa without me, and everybody's the appetite. I keep using this phrase. The appetite for Arch Manning is so high that I don't think he can meet expectations this year, no matter what he does. But I think we're all excited to see it. And I wrote a column about it for us, that it's probably the biggest phenomenon. It's like a combination of Tebow, Manziel, and Shedeur Sanders. I thought I made that case pretty clear. It really is.
Yeah, Tebow gave us like the tease aspect of it, where he played a little bit as a freshman. CJ Leak was a starter, and you saw it and you couldn't wait for it, and the anticipation built. And that Manning's got that same thing. Arch also has not transferred, which is a nice thing, and especially in today's environment. Sat and waited. He's at the big time program. He's shown flashes. He had a phenomenal spring game that kind of went viral but then he had to be a backup again. So yeah, I think the anticipation is totally justified. And I talked to, like I said, Pat Forty yesterday. He was in that scrum too or whatever. And just, people were hanging off the balcony trying to get photos of how big the scrum was and things like that or whatever. And general consensus was Arch handled it. He was kind of funny. He was like self-depreciating, etc. Sark always has good things to say about him. So do you still feel good about him being the number 1 quarterback in the SEC this year?
Not great, but it's okay.
I pulled our rankings. You got Arch, we got Garrett Nussmeier at 2, Lenoris Sellers at 3, DJ Lagway at 4. I mean, any one of those 4 guys could really run, could be number 1 as far as SEC QBs by the end of the season.
Yeah, I was on Sports Grid earlier this week with Craig Mish, which we do over at Sporting News, and I had said the exact same thing. Any one of those 4 guys right there that you mentioned could win the Heisman. And that's what makes it exciting. I think there's a lot of high upside guys here that aren't necessarily totally proven. Arch and Lagway more so. I mean, Lenoris had a really good year last year. He can play. And I think the 4 of those guys, if they do what they're expected to do, all 4 of them could be in the mix. Now, remember, Peyton Manning, he didn't win a Heisman Trophy. Eli didn't win one. Peyton didn't win one to this guy from, Michigan that later played for the Packers that was a former Mr. Ohio football that's some Sporting News employees consider one of the top 5 greatest football players of all time. But that's okay. And yet SEC fans are still mad about it. But
Vanderbilt fans are not mad about it.
It's funny, like not to get too far sidetracked, but I talked to a dad this weekend that said, I played high school basketball against Charles Woodson, and there's a picture of me in my paper. I held him to 26. So, like we had fun with that. But, back to the whole Arch Manning thing. Like I said, there's nothing he can do to meet the hype. I mean, let's say he goes up to Columbus on August 30th and throws for 286 yards and 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and they lose 31-28. I mean, like I think we'll still be like, man, he can play. If you can go up to Columbus and play like that. And, he's going to be under the scrutiny. We wrote so much about him at Sporting News last year. I know I made a few jokes about it in some meetings, but you guys had me write a story about his start against Mississippi State, and people read it because of that appetite. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to lose to Mississippi State, and not every pass matters, but we literally broke down every snap of the Mississippi State game and people read it. So good editing, good editors, good news judgment. 2, that's how it's going to be this year.
300 yards passing and a win at Ohio State, and there's going to be 4,000. Give them the Heisman columns.
I'll be writing that. I'll be writing that from the press box, I'm sure. So I mean, it is a different level of hype, but I do like his, mannerisms. He like I said, it feels like, Cooper and Peyton and Eli and even Archie. Like I thought there was a good quote in AL.com where Archie was just like, keep it short and sweet and be respectful. That is the Manning family right there in one sentence. So I think he'll have plenty of success. I think there'll be detractors. There always are. You're seeing columns written, well, the hype is too much. Well, of course it's too much. It's like I said, the Sanders thing applies, and he's in Texas, where Johnny Manziel was in Texas. And when you're in Texas, it's a little bit, everything's bigger in Texas. They say that for a reason, right? And so I think he's a combination of all 3 of those things. And I'm hoping it's a fun 1 or 2 years with Arch Manning, where we're having a lot of fun watching him, because it was always fun watching the Mannings, even though here's the thing. I always rooted for Brady against Peyton. And I can't stand Eli Manning for ripping 2 rings off the Packers' fingers. So I don't know why I like these guys.
I'm the same way, to be honest with you. I love I did not like Peyton because I was a Vanderbilt fan and he was at Tennessee. I did not like Eli after the Giants beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl. I love the Manning cast.
Yeah.
That shows you how charismatic those guys are. I think it's really good, even though I rooted against both of them for the most part during their careers. So, yeah, I loved the Arch Manning photo of him holding Archie's jersey at the College Football Hall of Fame yesterday. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And, so I think it's really going to be fun. Like I said, he has teased us enough so that we are pretty sure he's not going to be disappointed. We didn't know what to expect from Shedeur moving up to the Power 4.
Right.
I think we know what to expect with Arch, but
I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's Heisman good or number 1 pick good, and I don't care. I think it's going to be if you considered Quinn Ewers a good college football quarterback, which I did, I think Arch will be at minimum that, probably better.
Yeah, he should be.
Yeah,
he should be, which will be interesting. People will ask, why didn't he play last year? So anyway, let's talk about LSU and Brian Kelly, former Notre Dame head football coach, in case some of our listeners didn't know about that. He, as a well-documented, LSU has a well-documented opening game losing streak going back 4 or 5 years. He's lost all three at LSU. They face Clemson at Clemson to open the year this year. Another really, really tough game. And he's not backing down. He is, he's not saying, well, it's just 1 of 12, that kind of thing. He is putting all their chips on the table, so to speak. Another blackjack line for us today. They're putting, Clemson paw prints in the weight room, and I don't know if they have a countdown clock necessarily, but they are really, really emphasizing this game. Sometimes that can backfire, but he's trying to do something different, pull out all the stops. And if they do get past Clemson, maybe they start rolling and have a really, really good season. The one that they've been kind of inching towards, but haven't quite gotten since Kelly got there.
Yeah, and it is a huge opener. And, you saw the opposite SEC Media Day, Dabo Swinney had the press conference where he confused Brian Kelly with somebody from Florida Georgia Line. I don't know if you saw that. It was a pretty funny clip of he was sending texts to Brian Kelly unknowingly, thinking, he confused him with a Florida Georgia Line singer. It's a pretty good story. And well, my takeaway from that, though, is Dabo's pretty loose this year. Dabo isn't defending his portal. Dabo isn't defending his beliefs on something, which he always, to his credit, and he has haters, but I always say that dude stands on what he believes in. You don't have to agree with it, but nobody stands by his convictions harder than Dabo. And you're going in there and playing. Not an easy game, man. They don't lose much at home. There's so much on the line for both of those teams in that game. The Clemson side's obvious. The SEC lost to 3 SEC schools last year. Some of that Death Valley aura has been taken away. South Carolina's coming in there and won. Louisville came in there and ran for like 1 billion yards last year. But the LSU side's more critical. You're exactly right. Losing these openers in high-profile situations where I was like, every year has a moment, the one where he compared the team to, he butchered a John McKay one-liner, where he slammed his fist on the table last year after they lost to USC, where, UCLA beat Orgeron in the sissy blue shirt. Like, they've had, not only have they lost, they've had something we remember the loss by, which is even worse.
Yeah, they handed the game to Florida State too down in New Orleans with the blocked extra point.
Yeah, that was one of the crazier Labor Day night games we've ever seen, right? Or I think it was either Sunday or Labor Day night, either way.
Sunday night, yeah.
And now they're playing Clemson in a game that's huge for both schools. I do like LSU's talent. I like his confidence in their talent. They did get a lot of guys from the portal. They always have players. Garrett Nussmeier should be really good this year, and it's a big game for Nuss and Klubnik, 2 guys that NFL scouts will be paying attention to that game. So I do think, as big as Texas and Ohio State will be in the fanfare around Arch and Ohio State and everything, Clemson LSU is the game of that week. It's the bigger
Tigers
game
versus Tigers, Death Valley versus Death Valley.
I actually think it's the bigger game in some ways, because that's an ACC, SEC, huge game. When Michigan lost to Texas last year, we all kind of just moved on with our lives. Texas, we were like, yeah, Michigan's not very good. Texas is pretty good. We moved on. And I think we'll do that with Texas and Ohio State, although on a larger stage, because both of those teams should be in the national title hunt.
Right. It'll be an appetizer for what we'll see hopefully in December and January between both of those schools. I hope Harold Perkins is healthy again. Remember, we lost him. He was the first team All-American, or first team All-SEC as a freshman, second team All-SEC as a sophomore. People thought he would go pro after a junior, tore his ACL 3 or 4 games into the season last year. So he's back. Hope he's 100% healthy. He raised expectations so high as a freshman, hadn't met them yet. Hopefully his rehab went well and he can kind of get himself back to where everyone thought he was going to be, a top 10 NFL pick, potentially, things like that. So LSU's defense certainly could use him as a difference maker. That's been kind of their Achilles heel for a little while. So, yeah, interesting to see what we're going to get out of that too. So, all right. Now, one more storyline was Alabama. I went to Kalen DeBoer's session yesterday, and I noted that he spoke for 34 minutes. He answered 11 questions, and the words Nick Saban never came up. I felt like it is now his program, essentially. She was peppered last year with how do you toe the line and find the right balance to pay homage to Nick Saban and make the transition and be your own man in year one, and can you handle Alabama, yada yada. Saban's name didn't come up once, so that was interesting. We all know Alabama was the last team out of the college football playoff, first team out of the college football playoff. They won 9 games. They had some good games. They had some duds. It cost them in the end, and they look on it as a failure, and they probably should. When the college football playoff expanded from 4 teams to 12 teams, they were making it almost every year with the 4 teams. So when you're in 12 and you still miss, that's definitely coming up short. He acknowledged that, and they have a nice opener in that Florida State has a big name, can keep everybody focused throughout the summer, but on paper, the talent level certainly should favor Alabama in that one.
Yeah. I thought you did a good job on your column capturing the whole essence because of of course, what happened this week. We had some rumors of Saban coming back.
Yeah.
From Greg McElroy and a couple others, maybe Saban. He's 73. He's great in the studio. I kind of tend to agree with Paul Feinbaum on this one that I don't see it, but you just never know with hyper competitive people like Nick Saban, who might be the most hyper competitive of all, if he gets back in it or not. I don't think he's looking over Kalen's shoulder as much. I think they're kind of a national championship sleeper, but I can't go all the way in because I was talking with Jake Wimberly, Mississippi radio host, Sports Talk Mississippi yesterday, and I wonder, maybe you have some insight on this, Bill, that his endorsement of Ty Simpson wasn't exactly all the way in, right? They've got other quarterbacks there. They've got Mac, they've got Russell, and I've read good things about Ty Simpson. They do have outstanding wide receivers, including the one that we're probably talking about, Jeremiah Smith, so much that we're forgetting that Ryan Williams exists, and he's a really good receiver. So I do think the talent level's still there on both sides of the ball, and kind of the residual anger and frustration of last year's over, that they could easily get in the playoff. We have them in, and could be that kind of wild. Isn't it wild to call Alabama a wild card for the national championship? But I think it's there.
So, yeah, getting Ryan Grubb back, I think, is important as offensive coordinator. I looked up his numbers. The Seahawks were 21st in the NFL in yards per game before he got there. He took over last year for 1 year, bumped him up to 14th, and he still got fired. So that's what tells you the win now mentality. We think if there's a win now mentality at Alabama and those type of places, win now in the NFL as well. Moving up 7 spots for the Seahawks did not enable him in 1 year to keep his job. So he has reunited with DeBoer. I think that's going to help everybody. Your point on Simpson was well taken. I felt like I haven't seen him play yet. No one's really seen him play except for that USF game. But I don't feel like he's overwhelming physically. But I think they like how he kind of runs the game. But that's a change from Jalen Milroe, who was so athletic and could cover mistakes or whatever with just a really nice scramble or something like that. Simpson doesn't sound like he can do that. He said Austin Mack is a really big guy. He said Keelan Russell is super trip, but he has no experience as a true freshman. He just graduated high school, and so I don't think he's endorsing Russell necessarily, but it sounds like Russell might be the best athlete of the three of them. So that will be a change for Alabama to get used to. But, I do think your point is taken. They are behind Texas and Georgia, really, in the SEC pecking order, and that's an unfamiliar place to be. Nick Saban wasn't at SEC Media Days this year. He has been in the past. So they are just separating more and more, and they're becoming just a really good program and not like this Saban era, like holy mackerel. If they're not number one, I mean, they were number one, I think, 15 straight years at some point during the season, not necessarily preseason, not necessarily at the end of the season, but at some point during the season, I believe they reached number one like 15 consecutive years, which is just absurd.
So we're working on a couple evergreen projects at Sporting News about every school's top player, top 15 players. I'm doing the Alabama list as we speak. And I think, okay, so this is this proud program with Bear Bryant and all these guys. And just to give our listeners like a peek, it's like half of their top 15, 16 players of all time, at least, are going to be Saban guys, which is wild. Like
that includes the Stallings era and the right. Bear Bryant era. And
you just look at this list and you're like, wow. I mean, all of their Heisman Trophy winners are confined to the Saban era. All of the award winners and the NFL guys and it's wild, like looking at it, because you're like, you grew up thinking, nobody would ever be better than Derek Thomas at Alabama, and Saban might have 4 or 5 guys that have a case. I mean, and to your point about SEC Media Day, I've veteran of that, did it 4 or 5 times in a row when Saban was there, and he was the attraction. He was the guy. When he walked in, there were Alabama fans, When he walked in, you know how it is at these media days, every writer was in their seat when he was talking. There wasn't a lot of like guys just spread out all over the place. No, he was the guy. And, Kalen, spent some time with him at the Eddie Robinson banquet a few years ago. He's a great guy, great guy. And I think a really good coach.
Easy to root for.
Easy to root for sure. And I think there was all this talk that I don't think the job is over his head. I just think the task of replacing Saban is not enviable for anybody. But if they do go 9-4 or 8-5 this year, there could be problems later. So I think that's the pressure point on them, that they have to play better on the road. They were really bad in one-score games last year too. They've got to be better in one-score games than on the road. And those were things that like you took for granted with Saban. So
he did make a point yesterday that someone brought up. He has 10 losses, I think, to unranked teams. And I think he only has 3 losses to ranked. Like his record against ranked teams is really, really good. But he's lost to ranked team. Oklahoma was not ranked last year. Vanderbilt was not ranked last year. Michigan was not ranked last year in the bowl game. Lost all 3 of those games. So he pointed out a lot of those have been in my first year at a program. Fresno State, Washington, and now Alabama. Second year at Washington, 14-0 to the national championship, got beat. So we'll see if he can do the same thing second year at Alabama. I mean, I don't expect 14-0, but I think he expects improvement from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, and just taking a spot check at our potential list of greatest Alabama players, it is about half Saban guys.
Okay.
It's crazy, like when you really look at it. So, yeah, I do. And I think, as we wrap up SEC Media Day, the big theme for this conference is going to be, you have 10 ranked teams in the post-spring top 25, and some could make a case that like Auburn should be ranked or Missouri should be ranked. I think the highlight of the day so far is, unfortunately, Eli Drinkwitz made a Epstein files reference on the podium. So
he's not answering any Epstein questions. That's
apparently. So like that guy just finds a way to he finds a way to go get his name out there. No joke.
He did remark apparently that he was happy that his fight song got played when he walked up to the podium.
Yeah, so. He's a smart, smart aleck. Does anybody ever use that phrase anymore? But they're done, and then we get the Big Ten and the ACC next week. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what those schools say. I'm still predicting, with no insider knowledge of this, that whenever Michigan takes the podium, about 6 hours before that, we'll probably get their punishment from the NCAA.
Right,
we're getting on that timetable there.
That 45 days is getting into the 40s, I think.
That's just that's called a create more work for me guess at the wrong time. That's probably going to happen, but and then we're here, and then it's a month of getting ready for the season. Training camp, fall camps are starting, and it's a sprint to the finish. So it is. We've had a lot of good content at Sporting News this week. We've had, we have a full podcast coming about it, but our listeners should definitely check out our Michael Jordan LeBron content. There's a lot of high level writing on that side. Mike DeCourcy, Stefano, and I got after it and got after that argument, because there's not a day that goes by where I probably don't mention it. And most days I mention Michael Jordan.
Yes, sportingnews.com. We compared Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Not that anyone's ever done that before. We went deep dive. We got some really, really spectacular sources and commentary from Bob Costas, from Jack McCollum, from Sam Smith. Guys who really saw Jordan play, who've been around the game, saw LeBron play. Steph covers the league inside and out right now for us. So, it's really worth checking out at sportingnews.com. And then next week, like you said, we're going to be at ACC Media Days. We're going to have Belichick coverage. We're going to have Dabo Swinney coverage. We're going to have Cade Klubnik coverage at Clemson. So it's going to be a good week next week. We'll be keeping an eye on the Big Ten as well when we're in Charlotte. And we'll have a podcast for you midweek next week as well. We can give you everything that we've been gathering from the ACC and Big Ten Media Days. So let's do the Trocchi trivia question. Back to the Manning brothers. Peyton and Eli in the SEC, Tennessee and Ole Miss, went 5-1 in their bowl careers. Can you name the 5 teams that the brothers Manning defeated in those bowl games?
I can get 4. I got Eli. There was a really good bowl game he played with West Virginia. Does that count?
No.
Well, he played in it, didn't he?
He did not play in that one, surprisingly. I thought the same thing. It was in Nashville. He didn't play in that game.
Okay. He did play against Nebraska.
Yes.
Then I don't know the other one.
Okay.
Who is it?
Eli beat Oklahoma State. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma State. And I think it was Eli's final game.
Okay. So why did I think he played in that West Virginia game? I thought it was a crazy game where he might have let it come back. I'm gonna not. That's
look it up.
I will look it up. I will look it up, but I could be wrong. Now Peyton, I know 2 of them because of the old joke, Bill, that Spurrier said that Peyton came back to school so he could be a 3-time Citrus Bowl MVP, and the 2 Citrus Bowls that he won were against Ohio State and Northwestern.
You are correct.
SN NFL writer Vinny Iyer was a Northwestern student in the stands watching Peyton Manning shred. I believe he threw for like 1 billion yards in that game. And Ohio State, it's got to be the Jay Graham game. I think Jay Graham, running back for Tennessee, went off on the Buckeyes. Now, and I know who Peyton lost to. He lost to Nebraska. I don't know the 3rd win. I'm assuming it was when he was a freshman, and I'm blanking on it.
It was as a freshman. They beat Virginia Tech.
No wonder. There's no chance I watched that game as an 8th grader.
Virginia Tech. So I'm looking up this West Virginia game. Yes. It was. Oh, he did. He came off the bench.
That's why I thought he was. Did they win the game?
They were down 49-16 in the 4th quarter. He got it to 49-38.
That was kind of like his arrival. So I should get like half credit for that.
They got beat. Yes.
Because I do remember that one.
Okay.
I don't remember the Oklahoma State game at all. Yeah. So I'll give myself half credit.
I think that was the Cotton Bowl. So anyway. All right. Very good. All right, boy, 37 minutes. We got a meeting we got to get to.
We got to go.
Sporting news. But anyway, thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you soon.